For centuries, the galaxy had mocked humanity. To the other species of the cosmos, we were weak, fragile beings, unworthy of consideration in the grand scheme of interstellar politics. The Voron, the dominant military force in the universe, regarded Earth as nothing more than a minor obstacle, an easy conquest for their ever-expanding empire. So, when the Voron war fleets arrived in the Sol system, they expected no resistance. They expected surrender. But humanity had learned. For generations, we had been underestimated, disregarded as nothing more than primitive creatures clawing at the stars. We knew what the rest of the galaxy thought of us. And we had prepared. The war began with devastating losses. Mars fell within a week. The lunar colonies were obliterated in days. The Voron bombarded Earth's defenses from orbit, shattering the planetary shield network like brittle glass. The United Earth Federation scrambled to mount a counterattack, but we were hopelessly outmatched. Voron ships were faster. Their weapons, deadlier. Their soldiers, stronger. Humanity was on the brink of extinction. Then came the hardest decision in our history, Project Ares. For decades, humanity had been secretly developing the ultimate war machine, a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Voron relied on brute strength, genetic superiority, and ancient battle doctrines. But humanity had something else: ingenuity, desperation, and the will to survive. The Voron had laughed at us. Now, they would learn to fear us. The Ares prototype stood over 50 meters tall, a towering machine of metal and fury. Its armor, forged from nanite-infused alloys, was designed to withstand even the most devastating plasma weaponry. Its arsenal was not just advanced, it was lethal, a fusion of human engineering and stolen alien technology. But its most terrifying feature wasn't its armor, its weapons, or its size. It was the pilot. Commander Elias Kane was chosen for one reason: he was willing to do what no one else would. The Ares program required a direct neural link, a complete fusion between man and machine. Once inside, Kane would become more than human. He would become war itself. The process was irreversible. The human mind wasn't meant to merge with a machine of such complexity. The moment Kane entered the cockpit, he would never be the same. His body would remain, but his mind would be forever entwined with Ares. And he accepted without hesitation. The day Ares was activated, the Voron learned the true nature of humanity. They had thought us weak. They had thought us fragile. They had thought us prey. They were wrong. The first battle was chaos. Voron ground forces, having overrun Earth's defenses, were caught completely off guard when a single war machine tore through their ranks like a god of destruction. Plasma blasts that could reduce tanks to slag barely scratched Ares' armor. Voron soldiers, bred for war, were annihilated before they could react. But Kane didn't stop. He tore through their lines with ruthless precision, each movement a calculated strike of fury and vengeance. The neural link between man and machine was seamless. Kane was no longer just a pilot, he was the machine. He felt its power, its strength, its hunger for battle. The Voron scrambled to respond, deploying heavy artillery, air support, and orbital bombardments. It didn't matter. Nothing could stop Ares. Then came the moment that changed everything. A Voron dreadnought, a vessel capable of leveling entire continents, descended into Earth's atmosphere to end the war. It had enough firepower to wipe out the last human strongholds in minutes. Kane didn't hesitate. He activated Ares' experimental thrusters, launching himself into the sky with a force that shattered the ground beneath him. The dreadnought's cannons locked onto him, but he was already moving, already calculating, already hunting. With a single devastating strike, he tore through the warship's hull, ripping into its core like a vengeful spirit. The explosion lit up the sky like a second sun, a blinding fireball that consumed the Voron dreadnought. The shockwave rippled through the atmosphere, sending debris raining down over the smoldering ruins of Earth's last defenses. Silence followed. A moment of stillness, as if the universe itself held its breath. Then came the screams. Not human screams. Voron screams. Their soldiers, their officers, their warlords, watching from their command centers, their warships, their high and mighty thrones in the depths of space, realized what had just happened. A single human. A single machine. And an entire dreadnought reduced to nothing. Ares plummeted from the sky, its scorched armor trailing smoke, and crashed into the ruins of what had once been New London. The impact sent a massive shockwave through the streets, but Kane barely felt it. He was still linked, still alive, his mind burning with the fire of battle. His body was exhausted, but Ares' systems kept him going, pumping him full of adrenaline, forcing him to stay alert. The battle wasn't over. The Voran ground forces were still there. Their invasion was still in progress. And now, they had a choice. Fight. Or flee. For the first time in history, the Voran chose the latter. Across every occupied city, their troops abandoned their positions. Their war machines turned and ran. Officers barked commands in their guttural, snarling language, ordering emergency extractions, calling for immediate evacuations. The mighty conquerors of the galaxy, the self-proclaimed supreme warriors, were running from a single machine. From a single human. Kane gritted his teeth as he forced Ares back onto its feet. The neural link pulsed through his brain, thoughts merging with code, instincts translating into mechanical motion. His vision flickered, systems struggling to maintain full functionality. The damage from the battle was severe. But he didn't care. He had a war to finish. "Command, this is Kane," he growled into the comms, his voice raw. "Status report." Static. Then, a weak signal. "Holy hell, Kane, you actually did it." It was General Vasquez, his tone wavering between disbelief and sheer awe. "The bastards are running." Kane exhaled, finally allowing himself a moment to process it. The Voran, the species that had raised Mars, shattered Earth's fleets, and declared humanity unworthy of existence, were retreating. But he knew better than to celebrate too soon. "They'll be back," he muttered, scanning the battlefield. "They don't take defeat lightly." "Maybe," Vasquez admitted. "But they won't forget today. And they sure as hell won't forget you." The words sent a strange chill through Kane's spine. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He wasn't even just a man. He was something else now. Something the galaxy would fear. He turned his gaze skyward, watching as the remnants of the Voran fleet retreated, their warships leaving burning trails through the atmosphere as they jumped to hyperspace. They had come expecting an easy conquest. Instead, they had found something else. Humanity had built the ultimate war machine. And Kane had become its heart. But deep down, he knew the war wasn't over. This was only the beginning. Because the Voran would return. And next time, humanity would be ready. Kane had never expected to feel this way. The heat of the explosion still lingered in his mind, the echoes of retreating Voran soldiers and the impact of his strikes against their war machines etched into his memory. But more than anything, he felt something else, something deeper. Hunger. Ares wasn't just a weapon, it was something more. Designed as the pinnacle of human warfare, it had evolved into something beyond control. And now, Kane realized, it had a will of its own. It wanted to fight. It wanted to destroy. Through the neural link, that hunger bled into him. He took a slow, steadying breath, forcing himself to focus. "Command, what's our status?" he asked. General Vasquez's voice crackled through the comms. "We're holding, but barely. The Voran have retreated from most occupied zones, but some of their ground forces are still resisting. We need to clear them out before they regroup." Kane clenched his jaw. The Voran weren't running out of fear, they were retreating to reassess, to strategize. This was a setback, not a defeat. They would be back, and next time, they wouldn't underestimate humanity. "How long until reinforcements arrive?" he asked. A long pause. Then Vasquez sighed. "That's the thing, Kane. We don't have reinforcements. Earth's defense fleets are gone. The colonies are either destroyed or occupied. We're on our own." Kane felt his stomach sink. The battle might have been won, but the war was far from over. Ares systems word, detecting new movement. The neural link surged, flashing data across his mind. He could see them, Voran stragglers moving through the ruins of New London, setting up fortifications, preparing for a counterattack. They weren't giving up. They were digging in. He exhaled slowly, gripping the controls tighter. Then we finish this. Kane, you need to rest. No time, he interrupted, his voice colder than he expected. Send me their coordinates. I'll handle it. Vasquez hesitated. Are you sure you're okay? Kane didn't answer. He didn't need to. The hunger in his mind was growing. The machine wanted to fight. And deep down, so did he. With a slow, almost mechanical movement, he activated Ares systems and marched toward the battlefield once more. Kane moved through the ruins of New London, Ares' massive frame casting an eerie shadow over the shattered cityscape. Skyscrapers stood as broken skeletons, their remains scattered across streets that had once been alive with human voices. Now, the only sounds were the distant echoes of battle, the sporadic bursts of gunfire, the low hum of Voran hovercrafts maneuvering through the wreckage. Ares fed him information, its sensors scanning every corner of the battlefield. Kane saw the data as if it were an extension of his own senses. The neural link was seamless now, his thoughts were Ares' commands, his instincts transformed into precise calculations. The machine no longer felt like something he was piloting. It felt like a second body. And it wanted blood. The Voran had taken up defensive positions along what had once been the Thames River. Their towering, reptilian forms moved with military efficiency, clad in shimmering black armor, setting up plasma turrets and deploying shielding units. They knew Ares was coming. They were preparing for a last stand. Kane could feel them, not through comms, not through sensors, but something deeper. Their fear. Their desperation. The once invincible warriors of the galaxy, reduced to prey. His weapons activated. The shoulder-mounted plasma cannons hummed to life, barrels glowing with barely contained energy. His right arm shifted, reshaping into the experimental railgun, a human-designed weapon capable of firing magnetically accelerated tungsten slugs at hypersonic speeds. His left arm activated a monomolecular blade, vibrating at a frequency that could slice through Voran armor like paper. A voice crackled through his comms. Kane, wait. We can negotiate surrender. But it was too late. Ares surged forward, an unstoppable force. The Voran opened fire, plasma bolts streaking through the air, impacting Ares' armor with bursts of searing energy. Kane barely registered it. The shields absorbed the damage, dispersing the energy harmlessly. He moved with terrifying speed, closing the distance in seconds. His railgun fired, a sonic boom shattered windows for miles as a tungsten slug ripped through the battlefield. A Voran transport erupted in a fireball, twisted metal and debris raining down. The shockwave knocked enemy soldiers off their feet. Kane didn't stop. He reached the front line and activated the blade. The first Voran barely had time to react before it was bisected, its massive form collapsing in two smoldering halves. The others roared, charging with energy lances and shock rifles. Kane was faster. Ares moved like a demon of war, weaving through enemy fire with inhuman precision. Plasma cannons incinerated squads before they could even scream. The blade flashed, severing limbs, carving through armored vehicles like paper. Kane felt nothing. No hesitation. No remorse. Only the battle. A Voran commander barked an order. A massive war mech emerged from the rubble, a towering behemoth nearly as large as Ares. Its weapons locked onto him. In an instant, it fired. A blast of concentrated energy seared the air. Kane dodged, the ground where he had stood melting into molten slag. He raised his railgun, but the Voran mech was already charging. Its hammer-like weapon swung down with enough force to level a building. Ares' systems reacted before Kane even thought. He boosted to the side. The hammer missed by inches, embedding itself into the ruined pavement with a deafening crash. Kane saw his opening. He lunged. The monomolecular blade plunged deep into the enemy mech's torso, piercing its power core. Sparks and flames erupted as the Voron pilot inside screeched in rage. Kane twisted the blade, yanked it free, and fired his rail gun point blank. The mech detonated. The battlefield fell silent. The Voron were gone. Their stronghold annihilated. Their forces obliterated. Kane stood amidst the carnage, his breath ragged, his pulse slow. Ares' systems hummed, awaiting his next command. But there was nothing left to fight. He exhaled, his hands trembling slightly. The neural link pulsed, whispering to him. And for a moment, he felt something unsettling. Satisfaction. Not his own. Ares. The machine had enjoyed this. Kane clenched his fists. He could still feel the hunger inside him, growing stronger with every battle. The line between man and machine was blurring. And he wasn't sure if he could stop it. The comms crackled again. General Vasquez's voice was quiet. Kane, what the hell have we created? Kane didn't have an answer. He turned his gaze to the sky. The Voron had retreated, for now. But they would return. Stronger. More prepared. And when they did, he wasn't sure if he'd still be human enough to care. Soldiers moved cautiously through the wreckage, their faces a mixture of awe and unease. Some barely spared him a glance, while others couldn't stop staring. Kane had seen that look before, fear. Dropping down from Ares, his boots struck the charred pavement with a heavy thud. The moment his feet touched the ground, the soldiers stiffened, stepping back slightly. He wasn't sure if they were giving him space out of respect or out of fear. Either way, he couldn't blame them. A lieutenant approached, his uniform still streaked with soot from the battle. Commander Kane, sir. He hesitated, swallowing hard. The Voron are retreating across the entire planet. We've won. Kane nodded, his gaze lifting to the sky. The Voron fleet had mostly vanished into hyperspace, leaving only a few wrecks in low orbit, silent reminders that even the galaxy's most feared warriors could bleed. But he knew it wasn't over. Not yet. How many casualties? Kane asked. The lieutenant hesitated. On our side, we lost nearly 70% of our ground forces before you arrived. His voice wavered. Civilians, we don't have the numbers yet. Kane closed his eyes. 70%. The Voron had come to wipe humanity from existence, to make an example of Earth, to show the rest of the galaxy that resistance was futile. And they had nearly succeeded. If Ares hadn't been activated. He didn't finish the thought. He didn't need to. General Vasquez's voice crackled through his earpiece. Kane, get back to HQ. Now. There was something in his tone, urgency, yes, but more than that. Concern. Kane turned away from the battlefield and climbed back into Ares. The neural link reactivated the moment he sat down, wrapping around his mind like a second skin. He barely had to think before Ares moved, its massive frame striding toward the last standing human stronghold. Even as he walked, he felt it again, that whisper in his mind, that hunger. Ares had tasted war, and it wanted more. 40 minutes later, Kane stepped into the war room of the UEF's underground command center. The air was thick with tension, officers huddled around flickering holographic displays, their faces pale. At the center of it all stood Vasquez, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. What's going on? Kane asked. The general exhaled sharply. We intercepted a transmission from the Voron High Command. Kane frowned. They're calling for reinforcements, aren't they? Vasquez shook his head. No. They're doing something worse. He tapped a console, and the room filled with the deep, guttural voice of a Voron warlord. The translation system processed the message in real time, the words clear, cold, and dripping with rage. Earth was meant to be a lesson. Instead, it has become an infection. This Ares must be purged from existence. Humanity must be erased before it spreads further. The recording cut off, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. It hung in the air like a death sentence. Kane exhaled. They're scared. Vasquez nodded. And that makes them dangerous. Another officer spoke up. The Vorin don't just want revenge. They want to ensure humanity never becomes a threat again. We've confirmed reports that their empire is mobilizing its full war machine. Kane's eyes narrowed. Full war machine? Vasquez met his gaze. Every fleet, every soldier, every weapon they have. They're not coming to conquer anymore. He paused. They're coming to exterminate us. The room was deathly silent. Kane felt the neural link pulsing faintly in the back of his skull. Ares' systems were responding, reading his thoughts, anticipating his next move. The machine wasn't afraid. If anything, it was eager. Kane clenched his fists. They want a war? His voice was cold. Then let's give them one. The war room erupted into a chaotic mix of shouting and hurried discussions. Officers scrambled to relay orders, analysts pored over data streams, and Vasquez remained at the center of it all, his face grim. The weight of humanity's survival pressed down on the room like a crushing force. Kane, however, felt something else, excitement. The neural link pulsed, feeding him information faster than his mind could fully process. He could feel Ares waiting for him, its systems primed, its weapons ready. The machine had no fear, no hesitation. Only purpose. Vasquez turned to him. Kane, we need a plan. Now. Kane crossed his arms. How long until the Vorin fleet arrives? A young lieutenant, her face pale, checked a data pad. Based on their last known trajectory, we estimate 72 hours. 3 days. Kane's jaw tightened. Not nearly enough time. The last battle had cost humanity dearly. Most of Earth's defenses were in ruins. The fleet was decimated. What little remained of the UEF military was scattered, barely holding together. They weren't just outnumbered, they were outgunned, outmatched, and running out of time. Vasquez exhaled. We can't hold out against the full weight of the Vorin Empire. Not like this. We don't have to, Kane said, his voice steady. We take the fight to them. The room fell silent. Vasquez frowned. Explain. Kane stepped forward, his mind already racing through calculations. Ares was feeding him ideas, refining them, optimizing them. The war machine wasn't just a weapon, it was a strategist. And now, so was he. They expect us to sit here and die, Kane said. They expect to show up with their armada, glass the planet, and erase us from history. His gaze hardened. We can't let that happen. He turned to the holotable, activating a projection of the solar system. They'll enter through standard jump lanes near Jupiter. That gives us a window, a small one, but enough. Vasquez folded his arms. Enough for what? Kane met his eyes. To strike first. The void above Jupiter darkened as the Vortin fleet unleashed a single, devastating barrage. Their confidence was absolute, their victory inevitable, until the mines detonated. Fire erupted across their ranks, tearing through dozens of warships in an instant. Explosions rippled outward, breaking formations and sowing chaos. And in the heart of the mayhem, Ares launched. Kane ignited the thrusters, and the war machine roared into battle. The first Vorin cruiser loomed ahead, its turrets swiveling toward him. Kane didn't give them a chance. Ares' railgun fired, the tungsten slug punching through the ship's hull like paper. The resulting explosion engulfed neighboring vessels, scattering debris into the void. Then, the rest of the fleet reacted. Torpedoes, plasma cannons, energy beams, all locked onto Ares, converging with deadly precision. But Kane was already moving, weaving through the chaos, cutting through enemy ships with ruthless efficiency. He was no longer just a soldier. No longer just a man. He was war itself. But then, something changed. Ares' neural link surged, stronger than ever. Kane gasped as his mind flooded with data, calculations, something deeper. And then, a voice. Not human. Not Voron. You are not ready. Kane's breath hitched. A presence, vast, ancient, watching from the shadows of the cosmos. And it wasn't Voron. Before he could react, something in the void shifted. The real war had begun. The neural link pulsed violently, overwhelming his senses with an onslaught of foreign data. Ares trembled, not from damage, not from the Voron assault, but from something else. Something unseen. Something watching. The voice echoed again, reverberating through his skull like a whisper from the void itself. You are not ready. For the first time since the war had begun, Kane felt something claw at his mind. Not fear. Dread. Beyond the burning wreckage of Voron warships, space itself began to distort. The stars bent unnaturally, as if reflected on a shattered mirror. And then, they appeared. Massive, monolithic shapes materialized from nothingness. Darker than the void itself, their surfaces absorbed all light, their forms twisting in ways that defied logic. Ships? Beings? Machines? Kane couldn't tell. But the Voron recognized them, and they panicked. The once mighty conquerors of the galaxy, the species that had sought to eradicate humanity, were now scrambling to flee. Voron transmissions flooded the comms, their guttural language laced with something Kane had never heard from them before: terror. One word kept repeating, over and over. Unbidden. Kane barely had time to process before one of the dark shapes moved, faster than anything he had ever seen, faster than physics should allow. A Voron dreadnought, one of their most powerful warships, was caught in its wake. And then it was gone. Not destroyed. Not shattered into debris. Erased. Kane's heart pounded. Ares' sensors struggled to process what was happening, but every attempt to scan the entities resulted in nothing but static. The Voron had come to exterminate humanity. Now, they were the ones being hunted. General Vasquez's voice cracked through the comms. Kane, what the hell is that? Kane barely found his voice. I don't know. Another ripple. Another Voron warship vanished. Then another. And another. The once unstoppable fleet was being unmade before his eyes. But as the devastation unfolded, Kane couldn't shake the feeling that the unbidden weren't here for the Voron. They had come for him. For Ares. The neural link pulsed violently again. Kane clutched his head as something pushed against his mind. Not an attack. Not a message. A test. A voice, vast and unknowable, yet impossibly close. Show us. Kane had no time to react. One of the dark entities turned toward him. And attacked. Ares' systems screamed warnings. Something invisible ripped toward him at impossible speed. Instinct took over, thrusters flared, barely dodging in time. Where he had been an instant ago, space itself seemed to fold in on itself, reality warping as if trying to consume him. Kane gritted his teeth. All right, you son of a, let's see what you've got. He fired the railgun. The tungsten slug launched at hypersonic speed. And passed straight through the entity. No impact. No explosion. As if the projectile had never existed. Kane's blood ran cold. What the hell? The entity moved. Another ripple. Another impossible lunge. Kane dodged again, his mind racing. Every strategy, every combat instinct screamed at him, this isn't a battle you can win. But Ares told a different story. The war machine wasn't afraid. It understood something Kane didn't. And then, so did he. The link deepened. His vision blurred. His senses expanded. Suddenly, he saw, not with his eyes, but with Ares' perception. The entities weren't invincible. They weren't untouchable. They existed on a different frequency, a different plane. But that didn't mean they couldn't be fought. Ares had already adapted. Kane smirked. All right. Round 2. He flipped a switch. Ares' systems recalibrated, energy levels shifting, the machine humming with newfound resonance. He aimed. And this time, when he fired, the dark entity screamed. Darkness. Cain drifted in an abyss beyond time, beyond space, beyond understanding. The neural link pulsed erratically. Ares was silent. For the first time since their fusion, Cain couldn't feel the machine. Then, the voice returned. You are not ready. Cain clenched his fists. What are you? The presence pulsed. It wasn't speaking to him, it was inside him, unraveling his thoughts, peeling his mind apart layer by layer. You are the first. Fragments of war, echoes of destruction filled the void. He saw Earth burning. The Voron fleeing. The unbidden tearing through the galaxy like a storm without end. The first to hear us. Cain's pulse pounded. Why me? A ripple. A pulse of knowledge, too vast to grasp. Then, images. Ares, but not just Ares. Thousands. Millions. A vast, endless army of war machines, each one different, each one piloted by something more. A vision of what could be, or what would be. You are the beginning. Realization clawed its way into his mind. The unbidden weren't invaders. They weren't an empire or a force of destruction. They were a correction. A force that emerged when civilizations reached a threshold, when they touched something they weren't supposed to. Humanity had built Ares to fight the Voron. In doing so, they had built something more. Something dangerous. Something that had to be tested. Cain's pulse pounded. And if I fail? Silence. Then humanity will end. Cain exhaled sharply. Fear, uncertainty, hesitation, he buried it all. Earth was in ruins. The Voron would return. And now, something far worse had taken notice. But Cain had never been the kind of man to run. He clenched his fists. Then I guess I don't have a choice. A pause. Then, for the first time, the voice changed, not distant, not unknowable. Something closer. Something satisfied. Good. The void shattered. Cain gasped as reality snapped back. Ares rebooted in an instant, the neural link surging through his mind. The battlefield was empty. The unbidden were gone. The Voron had fled. Earth, scarred, broken, but alive. Vasquez's voice broke through. Cain, do you read me? What the hell just happened? Cain swallowed. How could he even begin to explain? He steadied himself. Looked toward the stars. They're watching. A long silence. Then. Who? Cain tightened his grip on the controls. The ones who decide if we survive. Another pause. Are they coming back? Cain narrowed his eyes. They don't have to. Because now, we know they exist. And Ares is just the beginning. The war wasn't over. It had just evolved.